Hey, Divine Redeemer families. Pastor Seth here for your weekly devotion during Lent as we continue our Passover sermon series. As you know, in this Passover sermon series, we are studying the book of Exodus, particularly in the beginning. And right now we're at about the story where Moses is being called into something very uncomfortable. He's being called to speak on behalf of God to a whole crowd of people. This is something that would terrify most people, and in fact, when you read through the account, it terrifies Moses when God calls him into leadership. Has that ever happened for you? I bet at some point in your past, in your Christian walk, or maybe some other aspect in life, you've been called to do something a little bit scary. Even now you might be thinking about it like, oh my goodness, I remember that time. I'm still freaking out about it. You might have been very scared, but then you actually went through a process and you were obedient and you followed after the Lord and you went back and you looked at it and went, oh my goodness, look at how much the Lord grew me then. Or maybe you're thinking back to that time and you were called to grow in leadership, and yet it was fear that got in the way. And so you're now looking on that in a little bit of remorse that the fear of this thing meant that you didn't get to follow after the Lord like you knew he wanted you to do. Well, whatever it is that you've had in your own previous experience, I think we all have a lot to learn from Moses and the way that God interacts with Moses' call into leadership. So I think it's really interesting when we start this dialogue in Moses' calling to speak to the whole nation of Israel on behalf of God. God starts the interaction in chapter 4, verse 2 this way. He says, Moses, what's in your hand? Kind of an interesting question, right? So like God knew that this was occurring. God knew what was in Moses' hand. Why? Because God put it there. Well, Moses doesn't know why he's asking this question, but that question and its answer kind of just lingers out there as the Lord continues to talk to Moses about leadership, about what it's going to be like when he steps into this large group of people he's going to have to relate to. Well, Moses still doesn't believe that he should be doing it. He feels woefully inadequate for the calling. And so the Lord says, well, take that staff, throw it on the ground, and I'm going to do something miraculous that's going to be a sign to you that you can do this, that I'll be with you. So, of course, he puts the staff down, turns into a serpent. Then he picks this serpent up by the tail, and it becomes his staff again, which, if I was you, I would never trust that staff again. I would not be sleeping next to that staff. I wouldn't keep it in the house with me because it could always turn back into a serpent. But nonetheless, that's what occurs. And that's not the only miracle that Moses needs to see. He has to be shown other miracles as well to be shown. Look, I, the Lord your God, am going to be with you through this. I have put the staff in your hand. I can make the mundane thing like a staff something absolutely miraculous. I can take your hand and perform a miracle with your hand that you cannot doubt my presence to do. This is what he was communicating to him. But Moses responds to all of this in a very human way, which I think you and I can relate to. He says, oh, my Lord, I'm not eloquent. Either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, I am slow of speech and tongue. The original Hebrew here is like, he's saying, my tongue is super heavy, is what he's saying. So he's trying to say, look, I can't do it, Lord. I just have too many obstacles, too much to fear. And the Lord says, well, who created that mouth? I did. I got you. And so then Moses is like, no, you don't understand, God. I'm still super, super nervous and super scared. There's just too much fear here. I can't do it. Send somebody else. So despite all the miracles that Moses just saw, he's telling God no. He's too afraid to follow after him. So God says, look, I've given you the staff in your hand. I've given you your hand. I've given you your mouth to be able to do everything I'm calling you to do, to step out, to stand out in leadership. But I've also given you your brother. I've given you someone else to be able to help you in this. And so it's after God lays out all these things that he's done for Moses, where Moses kind of finally sees that God is going to be with him, despite whatever the next chapter might bring, despite how scary it might be. And appropriately, the Lord closes off this dialogue with Moses and his call into leadership by saying, now take in your hand the staff with which you'll do this sign, speak on my behalf. So we start this dialogue with him asking, what's in your hand? A staff. And nothing's really formally changed with Moses. He's still there. In his hand is a staff. What this story is telling us is that wherever God is calling us out into being leaders in our Christian faith, speaking out about who Jesus is in our life, our past of fear actually has to be over. We're going to have to rely on Jesus to get us through this. Look, there's a lot of things we can't get over. We can't get over our own sinful past. Jesus has done that for us. But we can get past and over our fears that are getting in between you and I, working for him, giving him glory, telling other people about him. And so you know that that's what occurs. You know that's what happens with Moses. So my question to you is this. If the Lord looked at something that Moses already had in his life that would illustrate how good God has been into his past, to illustrate also how faithful he'll be into Moses' future, what kind of staff is in your hand? Where has God been faithful to serve you, to be present, to give you grace, to give you life in the past? That's where he's going to do his work as you continue to be with him in the future. I pray that you continue to learn lessons like this from the Word, that it's ultimately applicable to your life as we learn from Moses, but most importantly, we learn in our calling from Jesus about what it's like to be saved by him and to go out with him. Or in other words, to know him, to grow in him, and then to go out into this world with him. That's my prayer for you today. God bless you. Have a wonderful Lenten tide.